Hey guys, in this video we got the Traxxas Summit. Now, we bought this one for Tina. This one's hers. It's got the 2-speed transmission. It's got lockable differentials. It's not super fast. It's more of a crawler, but it looks like a monster truck. I don't know. We got it on the bench and we checked it out and it's pretty cool looking. In this video, we're gonna get this thing out of the box. We're gonna see what makes it tick. Then we're gonna take it out and test it like we normally do, but this one will probably be a little different because this belongs to Tina. Okay, after that, we'll bring it back in. We'll tell you how things went, what went good, what went wrong, and you'll get our 4 questions. Is it fun? Is it durable? Is it worth the money? And where does it stack up in our collection? This should be a lot of fun, guys. Check this out. Let's hope we got this thing right side up this time. No, every time upside down. All right. Got the TQI radio. That's cool. Look at that. The radio was upside down. And the packet. And our suspension is zipped down. Awesome. All right, so before we get into the car itself, let's see what comes in the box. Now, of course, it comes with the TQI radio, but this one's a little different, and this is the same one that comes with the TRX4, and it's got more channels to it because of the locking differentials and so forth. This one here, my understanding, we haven't turned this one on yet, but on the TRX4, this one is high and low range for the transmission. And this one locks the differentials. You can lock one diff or all the diffs just like that, nice and easy. It should work out really well. And then of course it's open in the center. So it's not a bad radio. This one does not come with the link connector. So adding the link connector to this might be a nice way to enhance the features of the radio, but that's what comes with the car. Also, we get the packet. Now this is a very simple packet. Inside here we've got the manual, and the manual, it tells you everything you need to know for part numbers, how to get things set up, how to get things running. And it does have a very simple toolkit, but it's necessary for what you're going to do with the car. Also, it's got some extra body clips and such in there, and it's got a sticker kit. That's pretty much all you get in the box. All right, so that being said, let's get the body off this and see what's required to get the suspension to lift, because it's shipped from the factory to fit in the box. So everything is compressed, and it looks like we're gonna have to pull some hood pins here to get this off. So there we go, and nice. Now that is a cool looking body. Let's get this out. You gotta see this. You know, they always look so cool when they're new, but look at the paint job on that. That is a really cool paint scheme. I like the orange, and the thing is, they had this in purple, which is actually my wife's favorite color, and she picked the orange one. Isn't that cool? And it's got the exo cage on it, so it protects the body pretty well. Inside is pretty straightforward, but it does have enhancements around each of the fender wells, and that should prevent any kind of splitting and cracking that you normally get on that type of thing. Very cool looking. Let's have a look down inside here real quick. And there are 2 zip ties right here. So there's one on the front and there's one right here on the back. Let's go ahead and snip those out and watch the suspension lift. There we go. Oh yeah. That stood it up nice. Get the back one. There we go. Oh yeah. That is so plush. Real nice. And it lifted it up quite a ways. I can get a full fist underneath it and not touch the chassis, which means it should have a lot of ground clearance. Just doing a quick measurement, and the thing has 4 inches of ground clearance in the center, and that's sitting as tall as it can go. So there's a lot of clearance, which means climbing and such should be real easy for this vehicle. Now let's get on to more practical matters and take a look at what makes this thing tick. And it does have a really substantial gearbox right here with a servo that changes the shift in there, so it goes from low range to high range. It has twin steering servos. So there's 2 servos connected to the whole steering apparatus, should give it some really good girth. I don't know how fast they're gonna be yet, but we also have the one here that shifts the not the transmission, but the differential into posi, which should give this thing a lot of traction in the right situations. I wouldn't want to run it around that way all the time, but during climbing, that would be a real advantage. The tires, they are the softest tires that I've run across yet, and they should get lots of traction down into rocks and stuff, which means this should climb really well. It does have a very big brushed motor in it, and I understand this is a 10 turn, which means it should spin up pretty good, and it has a speed control here that is capable of 4S. That's my understanding. Like I say, I haven't run this yet, so we're going to see how that works. It does have pockets on the sides. Now let's take a look at this. So you pull this and this little tab, and the pocket opens to slide the batteries in. There's a little loophole right here so your tail can come out and batteries are in. So there's one on each side there. Of course, the receiver's in the radio box. And what's curious is how these have the shocks laying down. Now, generally, I wouldn't be a fan of that because shocks invariably get bubbling in there. So when you fill a vertical shock, you can get an air cavity at the top. Some shock manufacturers put a silicone bladder in there to keep the oil separate from the air. This probably has that in there, but the idea is when you get the air into the oil, it foams. Okay, so as the plunger goes back and forth, it mixes it together and it changes the viscosity of the oils. If this has those bladder units in there, then that should keep the air separate from the oil and you should get nice consistent function. If you're laying a shock sideways and you don't have that bladder at the top, as soon as you get air mixed in with your oil, it doesn't function the same way. It becomes a lot lighter in nature. So that's something that I'll be interested to see when I finally get to take one of these apart, see what it is. I'm not going to tear it down right now. Like I say, this is the wife's car. Also, there's one other thing here that you might want to be aware of. We have a warning note right here on the side, and this one tells you that it can run nickel metal hydride or LiPo. When you turn it on, if the light goes green, you're on LiPo. That means it has the automatic cutoff for the voltage rating. But if it doesn't go green, follow the instructions to get it to LiPo so you don't destroy your batteries. You know what that means, guys? There's only one thing left to do. Let's take it out and test it. Check this out. So there you go, guys. That's the running footage for the Traxxas Summit. Now, Tina had a really good time with this car, and I have to admit, so did I. You know, I'm not really all that into crawlers, but at the same time, this kind of bridges the gap between the two. It's pretty quick for being a brush system, and it handles really good. It is not perfect, but it's definitely a lot of fun to play with. And the cool thing about that is, you know, you can get hooked on a certain aspect of the hobby pretty easily. The closest thing we have to that right now is this one, and that is the TRX4. And it's got a lot of the same running gear, and it's got a lot of the same characteristics. However, this one here goes in a lot more situations. Yes, it's wider, and it is limited by where you can go as far as width goes. But with the larger tires, it handles the bashing style of crawling pretty well. Now, like I say, I've never gotten into crawlers. I had to have one of these, and maybe we'll do a video on this one soon because of what we just did with that one. But at the same time, this one spurred something in me it's pretty cool. I really enjoyed the way this goes, the way it handles. It's got a really nice soft suspension on it. And it looks good when it's running, and that's a really cool thing. You know, the body here, it suffered no issues whatsoever, and it's still dirty because we just got it back, and I couldn't wait to get this one finished because I really do like this car. It's a lot of fun. It's not super fast. We did run it in some bashing situations, and it seemed to hold up okay for limited bashing. I wouldn't take this off anything big. We did hit the ramp with it a couple times. Tina took it over that, and just nice, easy jumps, and it did bottom out the suspension when it hit the ground, and we were maybe 5 feet in the air tops. So the suspension is really soft the way it comes out of the box, but it handled it really well. We absolutely broke nothing except for one item, and this happened right away. This thing comes with, let's see if I can find it real quick. Oh, come on, here it is. So this one comes with a pair of these steering servos. And these are 2075s, and there's a pair. So as you look in the car, and I'm gonna clean it after video, guys. I just haven't got to it yet. It still has the batteries in it. That's how, we just ran it not too long ago. But we put two 25 kg servos in this, and these are Metal Gear servos, because almost right away, and it wasn't like anything severe happened to it, it's just it stripped one out. And this one here is junk. It doesn't even make noise anymore. And I opened it up and looked, this is all plastic inside. And I don't know if they figured, well, we'll put two of them in it and we'll see if that makes a difference. Well, putting two of them in it, you still rupture one and they're junk. So we've used these 25s in our Creightons, in our Italians, in all kinds of the bigger bashing cars, and they hold up really well. Now it's got twins in it. So nice and smooth, lots of power. It turns really well now. And that's literally the only modification we've had to make to this car. That being said, you know, the TRX4, it's, like I say, it's got the same running gear. It's got the same shifting mechanisms for the differentials and the transmission. It came with a brushed system as well, just not quite as girthy as that one. And we switched that one out for the brushless version. I was curious to see what the difference was. And you do have a bit more control with the brushed system unless you go sensorless. And that's a bit more money, so we just put the standard crawlers brushless stuff in the TRX4. This one still has the brushed assembly in it, and it works really well. It gives you good control. It's got nice back drag when you're coming down the hill, and in the video, that really was a one and done thing, guys. We went up that hill, and it was substantial. That was you could see that mound from a long ways out, and we got almost to the peak. The reason we didn't keep going to the top is I couldn't climb up to the top of it with the shoes that I had on, but we went a long ways and we got quite a ways up it, and we got all the way back to the truck with no incidents. So this thing in that capacity is stellar, and both Tina and I are really tickled with this car. That being said, let's talk about the handling characteristics of it. You know, this turns really well, and I did learn something about this car, and what it is, and I was doing it wrong on the TRX4 for quite a while, but the differentials are up on this top switch here. So it's got a 3-position switch. You got back, center, and forward. The red switch down here is low and high range, okay? So that's cool. You can, but make sure when you go from range to range or lock and lock, make sure you're stopped when you do it. Don't be doing it under speed, because that can really damage the gears and stuff inside as they try to. So what it is in the differentials, they have two units like this, and when they're not together, it's open diff. But when this slips together, it locks it. Okay, so these fingers have to engage in order for that to become positive traction, front and rear. Now, when you do that, if you are moving and you try to jam those fingers together, it can cause damage, and then it won't shift right anymore or any of that stuff. And I'd talked to some friends that had the TRX4, and they warned me about it to start with. And this is exactly the same as far as how those differentials lock and unlock. In order for this to run properly, what I've discovered is all the way back is open. So what that means is all the diffs work like normal differentials. They spin easily, no problems. It's not locked front to back or side to side. You can lock one differential going to the center, and that gives you lock on one set. Then forward locks everything. And what that does is that makes it so these won't turn this way, and so these won't rotate in opposite directions. And let's move this out of the way here. So these won't do this. They're all or nothing, and the same in the back. They won't do this. Right now they're open, so they'll spin like a normal differential. And that gives you a real advantage, because if you get into a situation where the front wheel's lifted, it could spin out the extra power on that one, give you less power to this one, but once you lock it, it spins them evenly and it can grip a rock and pull you up over something. So being able to lock this, it's a real advantage. Okay, all that behind us, there's one more thing I want to talk about before we get into our 4 questions, and it's the tires. I haven't run into tires this soft and supple in a long time. These things are awesome. They don't balloon too much with the power of the car, that's to be expected, but they really do grip good, and they get you over some obstacles when you start to get hung up on stuff. They do swell enough to get down into the rocks and grab, and you know, since I don't crawl on the regular, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but I really like them. So you know what that means. It's time to get on to our 4 questions. And if you watch the channel, you know what they are. Is it fun? Is it durable? Is it worth the money? And where does it stack up? Guys, this is a crawler. It's kind of a mix between a crawler and a basher. But for me, this is a crawler. This is one you're going to take out and just test yourself against other things. So as far as where is it going to land in the collection, this is Tina's car, and it's not going to get rated as far as the top 10 goes, because this really belongs in a list of its own. And we're really talking about right now splitting up the list into different categories. So we'll have basher, we'd have on-road, and odds are we'll have crawler to go with that. And so we'll have separate ones. We just haven't got to that point yet. So let's get on to question 1. Is this thing fun? Well, I really didn't know what to think about it when we finally got it out. Tina seemed to have a really good time with it, and you know, it was really good up until the servo stopped working. And I was watching, she was not doing anything out of pocket, and it just spit up a servo. So we switched that out, and it had no problems since then, and she had a blast with it. Now, when we got up and I got to do some of that hillside crawling, and that was loose material and some of it was tight, and it was a real challenge, and I know darn well the TRX4 wouldn't have got up that, not with me driving it, but this went right up it, and I couldn't help but notice the feeling that I got from it when we started getting closer to the top. You know, at first getting up there, getting the start on it, it was a little bit of a challenge, and that's when it got excited. When I made it up the first mound and onto the top section, and where we were gonna cut up into the next area, I really did have a good time with that. And when we were on our way home after running this thing out there, I was jittery excited because it was so much fun. I mean, every now and then you get into an area of the hobby that you haven't been in a while, and it brings that joy and excitement straight back for you. So for this, is this thing fun? Yes, it's a little outside of my wheelhouse, and since I'm the one actually rating these, this all falls on me for this one. Is this thing fun? I'm gonna give it 8 out of 10 for fun, because it doesn't quite hit all the boxes for me because of my need for speed and, you know, the bashing thing, but it did get close. So I think 8 out of 10 for fun is a fair score. And question number 2, is this thing durable? Well, yeah, it's durable. It doesn't really go super fast, and if you don't pile it into something that's like stupid solid, it held up pretty well. You know, I haven't got enough time on the suspension to really see how well it's going to hold up in a bashing environment, but since this one isn't mine, I probably won't get the opportunity to do that. Still, at the same time, for what it's designed for and what we ran it through, it only broke a servo. And the problem with the servos are, and this is with a lot of the different brands, guys, it's not just Traxxas, but Traxxas is guilty of this. They do put low budget electronics in these cars to keep the cost down, and just kind of come to expect that with these things. Each time I get a new car, I'm just ready to order a new servo up because they don't generally put the best equipment in there. As far as that goes though, everything else, including the radio, worked as advertised with no breakage on anything. So since we did have problems, but everything worked pretty well, I'm gonna go ahead and give this one 8 out of 10 for durability. Because if you use it as intended, it holds up really well. Now, if you geared the thing up and took it to the skate park or the super ramp, it probably wouldn't last that long. Just the little 5-foot jump that we put on it bottomed the chassis right out on both landings, and I could see how that would really take a toll over time. We wanted to see how that would work, and we got our answer. So for this, it's gonna get 8 out of 10, guys. And question number 3, is this thing worth the money? Well, you know, it wasn't stupid expensive. It did cost quite a bit, but it wasn't overly expensive for what you get. Now, the thing is, this is only worth the money if this is what you're looking for. If you want something that can kind of cross the line between crawler and basher, but more along the lines of the crawler category, you know, raging into monster truck and things like that, this is kind of the one that fits the bill for that. Is it a dedicated crawler? Well, not really. It does crawl good, but it doesn't sort of fit into that platform. The closer one to that is the TRX4 up on the shelf there. And that one comes a little closer, but if you're actually going to go out and do some serious crawling, they usually build dedicated crawlers that really will run around this one. So it depends on what you're into. As far as this goes, is this thing worth the money? You know, I'm going to say yes, it's worth the money, because this is another facet to the hobby that we kind of neglect around here once in a while. It's like you don't see us do a lot of on-road. Not that we don't do on-road, we do on-road, and we do crawl a little bit, but it's not really where our passion is. However, it's really refreshing to get out and give that a shot. And when it spurs something in you, you'll spend some time. It's like recently, we just got into the short course stuff, and we're in the middle of running a whole bunch of that right now. And we've had short course trucks on the shelf for a long time, and they just kind of sat there while we did other things. But once you get the bug for something, it gets into you, and you just have to see how far that goes. Right now, this crawler deal is a pretty cool situation. I'm gonna go, if this thing's worth the money, again, I'm gonna go 8 out of 10, because if this is what you're looking for, I really think it's worth the money. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. Is it something that you're gonna go out with the dedicated crawlers and play with? You might, but I get the feeling that they're gonna make you look kind of silly with their actual crawlers, the ones that are competition style. For goofing around and having a good time, this thing is awesome. And guys, question number 4, where does this stack up in our collection? Well, you already know this thing isn't gonna make the top 10, because this isn't really our style as far as what the channel is based on. But that doesn't mean it'll stay that way. We are planning on splitting it up, and it'll wind up in its own list along with the others as we collect them. For right now, it's not in the top 10, but it is a fantastic car. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. It's awesome when you do, and it lets us know what you think of the content. And hey, if you wouldn't mind, don't be afraid to bash that like button, because that helps the channel's content spread to others. And the whole point of the channel here is to help others with the hobby. We like to get new people in. We like to help them out and let them know how easy this hobby can be and how much fun it actually is. You know, there's something in this hobby for everyone, and it doesn't really matter what your facet is, from helicopters to tanks, all the way over to a big equipment, everything. If there's something that you want to deal with, odds are there's going to be an RC version of it to play with. And once you get hooked on it, it's really gnarly, because it can get its grips in you. These things, you buy one and you have a good time with it. Then you see one you got to have. And then you see another one you got to have, and It can be terrible at times, but it's so much fun. And that's what we really like to inspire here at the channel. Keep in mind, this is all our opinion here. The guys that work at the channel, we do our best to be balanced and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, it's just our opinion. If you don't agree with our opinions, that's awesome. Everyone has an opinion, and that doesn't invalidate anyone else's point of view. This is just what works for us. So if you guys have one of these and you have some things you'd like to share about it, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below and help others along the way. Hey guys, I'm AJ with AJ Jam Studio saying, keep crawling, guys.